Hello friends, welcome to this video that I'm doing for Pvgna.com, and this is part of the how to gain MMR meta guide in solo queue in 7.02, and of course the patch doesn't actually matter for this specific guide. In this video I'm going to talk about something that I consider different from just those rules, something that I consider needs to have its own video, and that's practicing heroes efficiently. Because of course if you follow these rules, you're going to have a very strong mentality going into games, I think. But of course, if you don't know how to play specific heroes, you are possibly weaker in these pubs just by virtue of not knowing how to play enough heroes at a high mechanical level. So I guess there's something that I want to kind of do a fedora tip to here, and that's the fact that I already mentioned this briefly, but just as an analogy to why I think it's important to actually practice differently from how a lot of people do, which is just pubbing. I think just pubbing is bad practice, but NFL players do not play games between games. I mean, I'm sure they do kind of play games, maybe some like scrim matches or something like that, but for the most part, they do drills. They don't actually play big games between games. They do drills of passing, tackling, running, you know, they work out. There's all sorts of things that they do, and then they go into a game and they put it all together. And that's because if somebody's weak at a specific thing, there's no reason to play an entire game to train somebody on that specific thing. And the same thing goes for esports. The exact same thing goes for esports. All I'm trying to argue here is that there are way more efficient ways of practicing in esports, and I think a lot of people don't do it. And if you're watching this guide and you're looking to increase your solo MMR, of course you're a competitive player and you probably want to practice before you go into a match. You probably want to just, because it's not hard, right? It's not hard to practice. Like, everybody wants to be good at the things they do. Like, you can go in and just do some easy practice, and you're actually saving time by doing these methods that I'm going to talk about. And the very first one is, if you're learning spell mechanics, specifically spell mechanics on like a hero, and you actually just want to get the mechanics to be muscle memory for you. I'm going to use Clockwork as a specific example. So you could play 4 hours of Clockwork, okay? And let's say that's 5 or 6 games. We'll say 6 games. And let's say every game on Clockwork you hook 10 times for simplicity's sake. That's about 60 hooks that you're doing in 5 hours of practice. That's not going to help you make hooking muscle memory. You're not going to get extremely good at hooking. You're going to need tons and tons and tons of Clockwork games because hook is such a long cooldown. You're not actually getting practice with the mechanic. So what can you do to actually do this faster? Of course, I'm in a practice lobby here. You can see I got Clockwork and I have all my axes lined up. I'm going to do all vision just so you can kind of see. So the actual drill that you would do, and we called this drills when I played on my previous team, previous to this current one, we called these sorts of kind of individual drills. And what you can do is you can just go into a practice lobby and set yourself up in some scenario. And this isn't just Clockwork, this is just a single example. Just be creative and come up with a scenario where you're actually practicing skillfully using an ability. So here's an example here. So I'm just going to take my first axe and I'm going to shift Q him a bunch of commands. I'm just going to move him a ton. And then I'm going to take the second axe and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the third axe and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll just make this guy stationary. But let's say I want to hit this last axe. Alright, yo, you got to keep moving. So let's say I want to hit this last axe, right? This is a really nice way of practicing hook. So, right? Hook, nice. That's like one hook. They got to keep moving. So, another hook. You can even move into like different angles. You can like just be creative. Like, do whatever. Like, I'm going for the middle guy so you can kind of see I stunned, so I just saw there that I stunned through the axis. So now I noticed that I hooked this guy, so I need to move him, or maybe maybe I just didn't have the range on it. So I can see the length on it, I can see the width on it. So I'm doing this. I'm actually learning things as I'm doing this, and I'm getting a feel. My hands are getting a feel for actually casting hook quickly. So I can even kind of just like move my camera around here, move some guys, you know, and then just go for it. Oh, okay, look, you know, I saw that I hooked that guy up there, so I moved my mouse a little too much to the top. And you can see that these are like, how many times did I hook there? I don't know, like 6 or 7 times in just like 30 seconds or something. And these are all different scenarios that I'm practicing, and I'm seeing different things as it's happening. I'm learning, oh, you know, it's not wide enough to go through, or it's not narrow enough to go through these two heroes, or I'm hitting the guy on the top when I'm trying to go for the guy in the middle because, you know, because of X reason. So you're actually learning things, and your hands are actually getting used to the muscle memory of pressing this ability. And actually, something that I want to refer to here is a bit of psychology. There's something called spontaneous manifestation. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but this is actually high school philosophy that I remember this from, so I could be wrong. But I recall something called spontaneous manifestation. It's essentially taking a task, like an everyday task, and having it become part of your body, kind of like it's like an action of your body. So a good example is when you eat cereal in the morning. You're not thinking hold spoon, like you're not thinking, okay, hold spoon, put spoon into cereal bowl, lift cereal, cup it, put it into my mouth, you know, chew with my back molars, swallow. Like, you're not thinking of all these things. It's just one thing. It's just cereal. Eat cereal. That's all it is, and that's all that your brain needs to think of. And there's actual physical connections in your brain that form from doing things a lot because it's efficient. Your brain is built to be this efficient machine, and the more you do something, the more a path of neurons, or whatever the hell they are being used, and it actually builds a physical path that gets used more and more, and it becomes more efficient. And essentially all that does is it makes it so it becomes second nature to do specific actions. And this has been proven to work in gaming. Of course it does, because that's how the brain works, and you wouldn't have, you know, miracles and Weehaws being crazy at these invoker combos. Like, you see them play invoker and it's like an extension of their body, and that's why. It's because these neurons, or whatever the paths are in the brain, I don't know what you specifically call them, I'm not a scientist, I'm a computer scientist, but these paths form, and all of a sudden it's second nature for these people. And this sort of practice, just kind of hooking around and having a good time, you know, just going for, like, I'm gonna go for this guy on the right here, I'll look like I got him, but I stunned this guy. Like, these things, you're learning these things, and your brain is forming these paths. So it's actual, this is like neurological stuff here, guys. You gotta be doing this. So that's what you do if you want to practice spell mechanics, and make things become second nature. You don't want to do that in games, because you're not going to actually get enough practice. You can kill like 10 hours in games and get the same practice of 20 minutes of this sort of thing in a practice lab. And of course, like I said, this is just clockwork. You can do this with any hero. You can do it with pudge hooks, do the same thing. You can do it with axe taunts, same thing. It's all the same. You just need to come up with one and be creative. So there's one other thing that I want to talk about in this video, and that's if you're learning kind of like the strategy of Dota, or you're kind of starting from scratch with a hero and you just don't know how people play a specific hero in a game. So I'm not talking about just the spell mechanics. I'm talking about in a game, you want to know what lane the hero goes, how the lane is played, what skill build, all of these things. If you want to learn any of these things, of course, at a point you can invent your own, and you can kind of do whatever you want, and you know, like, experiment and build whatever you want. But you have to understand that there are people who have done the research, and they put the time and effort into learning something, and you can go learn from them. So what you do is you just click over to the watch tab. So this is if you want to actually learn strategy or how to play a hero, and then you just go, let's say I want to watch I want to learn how to play 4-roll Slardar. Well, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to look. Okay, they have an Abaddon, they have a Rubik, so that means that Slardar is a 4-roll, and this is a top game, so I'm just going to go ahead and watch Stan King play Slardar. And bad reload, I don't even know what that means. Okay, so let's say I want to learn Centaur, so I'm going to go ahead and watch Jubei play Centaur. And essentially, this allows you to take that 90% of knowledge that other people... You're going to get so much more out of this than essentially you're... What's a good analogy? You're essentially like, instead of having to play 10 games to learn, oh, I shouldn't go boots first on Centaur because he can just sit in the lane and be tanky. You can just click in here to Jubei, and you can see that he has... You know, he went for the early stout shield. You can see that, and then he goes for the boot second. So you don't have to learn these things over 10 games, because there are people who have played those 10 games already, and you can learn from them. And then once you have that knowledge, that kind of 90% of the knowledge for a hero, you can build on top of that. And that's when you can do your own experimenting, and you can try going boots first on center. You can try these things, but you wanna do the most optimal practice possible and learn the information that's already out there first before expanding on your own information. So that's the second thing that you need to do. And once you've done these two things, once you've actually practiced a hero in the game and you've seen how people play the hero, that's when I would recommend pubbing with a hero. And then you're actually going to be strong going into those pubs. You might make a few mistakes here or there, but you're going to be so much stronger, and it's very, very likely that you're going to be more likely to win games, of course. And this is incredibly important because there are a lot of strong heroes who become overpowered that you may not know that you're going to need to learn, and you can't just go play an overpowered hero and win with the overpowered hero, because it doesn't work like that. They're overpowered because of a specific way that people play them, and because of a specific set of skills that you need to use in a specific order and all this sort of thing. So practicing using these methods is a really, really excellent way to get to that point faster than people would by pubbing. And the way that I like to think about it is that I know a lot of people don't do this. So I like to think that the people that are in my rating that I need to beat for MMR, I'm learning faster than them. I'm essentially making time where they're losing time because they're not doing this and I am. And they're just sitting there pubbing. While they're sitting there pubbing, I'm getting 10 pubs of practice when they're getting 1. And that's the way I think about it. So hopefully this is useful. Hopefully this helps you. And I know this is how a lot of pros learn heroes, and I don't see why it should be any different for going up in the pub rankings. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.